What's your story?
My story.
Yeah, where are you from?
I'm from Huntington Beach, California. And
what's your dad do?
He was a carpenter.
Are your parents together?
They were.
No.
They're dead. So
they're dead.
They are dead.
How'd they die?
There's no funny way to play this off.
I don't want it. I'm not asking for.
Okay.
Can you tell me a funny way your parents died, please? No one wants that.
Well, my mom, her lungs failed, and my father, he was a spinal cord injury patient, sustained because of his carpentry. He fell through a roof, severed his spinal cord, and succumbed to infections that resulted from that over the course of years.
What was the span between the two of them dying?
7 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And how old were you when your mom died?
I was 13.
And how old were you? So you were 20 when your dad died.
I'm not good at basic arithmetic. I'm gonna go ahead and say I was 21 when my dad died. So 8 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of trauma made you more resilient and kind of tougher?
I would think so. Yeah. Yeah. That's been my experience.
Because we were talking about this earlier on Crowder's show, and I feel like we have an obesity problem in this country, and it's mental obesity.
Right.
Where we don't like confrontation, we don't want to debate, we don't want to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
And I've noticed with young conservatives, they usually have a story like yours.
Really?
Where they've been through something pretty rough. Mm-hmm. Like Katie Pavlich, I was backstage with her at Fox News, and I go, "You're really pretty." Mm-hmm. I wasn't saying in a flirtatious way. You're very pretty, but you're not dumb. What happened? Was your dad a burn victim? And she goes, "I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere. I didn't know that." I'm paraphrasing, but I didn't know I was pretty until it was too late and my personality was formed. I feel like, they say, strong men create good times create weak men, weak men create bad times create strong men. And I feel like we're in a strong men create weak men. No, good times create weak men moment.
Yeah.
And it's the only time I seem to be able to get along with guys is when their fucking parents died. Especially millennials.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I suppose what you're looking at, too, is there seems to be that sort of firmness with regard to Zennials, Gen Z. And I feel like that there definitely is, that's definitely much more common among Gen Zers to have seriously encountered really traumatic experiences and then for their entire worldview to have been shattered by that. And so that they reconstruct it in a way that is much more realistic than people, the millennials who came before them as having been raised in this much more sheltered environment. And
like you see it, to me, millennials, Z-millennial, whatever they are, young people, I'm 48, so they're all the same to me.
Yeah.
But when I see an attractive young lady with a MAGA hat, I go, oh, your brother's retarded. And I'm not disparaging her, obviously, but I know that she's aware of the world, and she knows that things can be hard on people, and she's helped him out, and she saw him being teased, and she fought back, and she's older than her years.
Right. Yeah.
Because right now, as far as the people who are not older than their years, we're in a slump, my friend.
Yeah. Jonathan Haidt has a lot to talk. Are you familiar with Jonathan Haidt at all?
Yeah.
The psychologist? I mean, yeah, he does talk about this, and it definitely does coincide with the fact that people increasingly were not, there was this idea that came about, which is this paranoia that people are going to go, if your kid goes out, they're going to get kidnapped inevitably. And so we just kind of, despite the fact that statistically things are less violent than they've ever been, there's this belief that you can't send your kid out to encounter the world.
Yet kids go out less than ever before.
Exactly.
Like I grew up in the 70s when crime was worse and we all jumped on our bikes and disappeared for hours. But today, kids are more, insular. They're inside playing video games because their parents are paranoid they're going to be kidnapped. Kidnapping is down. Your kid's not going to be kidnapped. So as crime goes down, people become more scared. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too because, they went out and, there was a crime crisis, in the 90s and what have you. And maybe it was a response to that, parents saw this crisis of crime and they thought they had to withdraw their kids from the outside world.
Maybe it takes long to correct.
Yeah.
I think the greatest childhood ever in the history of man was South Brooklyn in the 50s. Post-war Brooklyn, stickball, Italians. Yes, the mob was there killing people, and occasionally a 10-year-old would see a dead body on the side of the road.
Yeah.
That was still better than what we have now, which is camp and monitored play and play dates and just so much scrutiny. Like, kids need to be getting into trouble. Kids need mischief. And in the 50s in New York, they had a sense of community. And if say, a 10-year-old boy just whacked a 2-year-old girl in the head, and the parents are miles away, all parents are miles away, some other woman would come out and go, "What are you doing? You don't hit a little girl in the head. What's the matter with you?" And then she'd hit him in the head. Like, there was it was almost like an anarchist socialist commune.
Right. Yeah.
And that's been my goal as a parent, is to try to recreate that. And I'm not sure it's recreatable. It might be in the South, but north of the Mason-Dixon line, I'm worried that utopia is lost.
Why do you think that has come about? What do you think drove that?
The media has brainwashed people. I think that, if it bleeds, it leads. And so they put the blood on the front page, and they've convinced people that not just America is very dangerous and there's kidnappers that want to kill your kids around every corner, but there's Nazis everywhere. And there's bigots, and the Klan is coming up and down your street. I mean, in my neighborhood, they got so paranoid when they found out I lived there, because I'm David Duke, that they said there was a red Jeep driving up and down the street, scoping out homes that have "Hate has no home here" signs. And it was a red Jeep Rubicon. So they called the police and the FBI, because I sent this Jeep around the neighborhood to analyze people. Maybe, I don't know, kill them. So I'm freaked out by that. I don't want that reputation. And I was talking to local law enforcement. They go, "Yeah, we heard that too. We looked it up. There's a Jeep dealership down the street." These guys all have New York accents, but the locals don't. There's a Jeep dealership down the street. They take this route by your house because it's a nice route. It's by a park. You can see the Long Island Sound. I mean, you can see the sunset. So the reason you keep seeing this Jeep in your neighborhood is because people keep test driving it. But we're living in such a paranoid time that they go, "That's the hate group leaders, thugs." And I'm calling it. In my neighborhood, there was these F-15 fighter jets doing an exercise. The locals, and these are all very wealthy people, called the FBI and the police and said, "There's something going on and it's not good." Now, A, that's insane. B, say it was true and North Korea was invading the suburbs of New York. What the fuck are the police supposed to do? Shoot at the planes?
Yeah.
Shoot them down? Actually, you know what? If you're a cop and you're listening to this, don't shoot them down. I don't want some F-15 crashing into someone's house and killing 30 people. And then I was thinking, wait a minute. What if there was a third option? You could call the police, the FBI, and Superman. Superman, there's F-15s flying above my house. What is Superman supposed to do? Like, he could probably catch up to them. They're really, really fast. I think they go like 800 miles an hour. But okay, Superman finds them, and then what does he do? Like, knock on the window and go, "What are you doing? Pull over. What are you doing?" Or grab them? He could probably grab one. He can't grab all six. He can't stack them.
Well, see, that's so much of what your appeal originates from, that entire tangent right there, that tirade. It's basically the fact that you're in this...
I believe it's pronounced tirade.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, how did I say it?
Too much emphasis on the tie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're like these pedophiles who go to Southeast Asia. You emphasize the tie too much.
But this emphasizes your unique appeal. The fact that you're able to reduce these things to such a point of absurdity that it's just unignorable.
You know what
anybody.
it is? I'm not talented. Maybe I have a sort of that Y-shaped stick where you can find water. But
yeah,
it's an ability to sort of tap into the zeitgeist. Like, my new thing with the left is play it through. Like, what's your version of events? So with those F-15s, like, when you call the FBI, what do you want to happen? Like, tell me, as the head of the FBI, tell me what to do now. Like I get my own F-15s and they go searching the skies for your guys? Like with Brett Kavanaugh, they go, we don't want him to become a Supreme Court judge because there's an allegation against him. Okay, so let me get this straight. In your version of events, if there's an allegation against a Supreme Court judge, he can't become a Supreme Court judge. All right. So you do realize there's going to be a lot of allegations against all future Supreme Court judges, right? Or even with their thing with, we want ICE abolished. Okay, let's play it through. They do this in AA or NA, Narcotics Anonymous. They say, all right, I know you're a heroin addict and you want a beer. Play it through. You're going to have a beer, then you're going to have 3 beers. Then you're going to have 7 beers. And then you're going to ask your buddy if he can get any Coke. Then you're going to get some Coke. Then you're going to start doing shots. And then you're going to go, you should probably get some heroin. And you're going to get some heroin and you're going to do a line the way you used to do lines when you were addicted to heroin. And your tolerance is different and you're going to die. So this is the sponsor of the guy. The sponsors explain, play it through. And I don't think liberals understand how to play it through. Like Brett Kavanaugh, is he going to redefine the way we choose Supreme Court judges, or this whole idea of no ICE? Okay, so there's no borders. All right, there's no borders in America. Every other country has borders, but America doesn't have borders. Don't you realize that 4 billion of the 7 billion here are dying to move to America? What does America look like now? It's ironic because we have Cortez saying that the world's going to be over in 12 years. The world's going to be over in 1 year if you eradicate borders. And they say as much. When they went to Tucker's house, they said no borders, no wall, no USA at all. So you literally don't want a country. You want an apocalypse, yet you don't want an apocalypse. I don't get it.
Right. Well, I guess that's the beauty of your approach, which is that you don't overthink it. You just kind of take it at face value what they're saying. And because the thing about them is that they're so ensconced in their ideology. They have all of these inbuilt answers, and it makes sense to them because
we're a nation of immigrants,
right? They have these. Of course, they have the ready-made, responses and the slogans, but they also have they have philosophies that undergird them that they think make sense, and they use a lot of words that mean nothing. And then when somebody like you, who's just a normal dude, comes along and says, "Well, wait, what are you actually saying?" All of their labyrinthine language doesn't actually translate into reality. It just takes them out of reality, puts them in some other world.
It's sports to them. I like the Mets. I don't like the Yankees.
Yeah.
It's an irrational preference. I want certain Yankees to have a car accident.
Right.
And I wouldn't make them have a car accident, but if I heard that Aaron Judge crashed his car and hurt his wrist, I'd be happy. That's stupid and insane and irrational, and that's sports. I pray for the Mets when we're at the stands, and I hope that they beat the team. That's dumb. I'm being a stupid, crazy bitch.
Yeah.
14-year-old babysitter cunt when I do that. But it's also a joke. Like, I don't really mean it. But the left has sort of taken on this sports mentality where they want your team to lose at all odds, no matter what.
But as it pertains to you, really, fascinatingly, why is it that, because your opinions are pretty conventional. I might even be further right than you.
Yeah.
You are you are extremely socially liberal. Your lifestyle reflects as much. You talk about as much. You make no secret about that. You're not, aside from the immigration debate, you are not a radical figure. You are
even immigration-wise. Yeah. I have the same views as Obama and Hillary and Bill in 2004.
But why do you think because you're not even conspiratorial. You're not somebody who believes in overarching conspiracies that are, motivating the left. You're not an anti-Semite. You're none of these things. None of your rhetoric has ever really seemingly reflected that. So what is it about you that makes you such a focus of their ire? Why do they want to expunge you from the internet? Why do they want to take your pictures of pancakes on Instagram away from people's eyes? What is it?
I think my curse is you. My curse is that I'm effective. My curse is that you were just laughing earlier at what I said. My curse is that I'm palatable, and I'm reluctant to say charming, but a normal dude. Like, you talk to me, and you know that I have no tricks up my sleeve.
Yeah.
And the left hates that because they're all about tricks. So the problem with Gavin McInnes is that he talks in public the way everyone else talks in bars, and they go, I don't want that out there. Because it's making Trump seem palatable. It's making the right seem unevil. They had made the right into this sort of Pat Buchanan paleo-conservative with a skinny black tie and a Reservoir Dogs suit who hates gays and has never heard of what marijuana is. And then when I go, I have tattoos and I've had more threesomes than a porn star and I love Trump. They go, no. Stop. You're a racist. No, I have way more black and whatever friends than you hang out with. You don't like other races. Other races don't like you. And I think they see me as their Achilles heel. And they go, he's everything we're lying about. So let's shut him down and make it impossible for him to defend himself. And then we can turn him into Hitler.
And it's interesting because you come from the same background as them. You can understand almost like what motivates their thinking, the sort of empathic kind of love and I love for other people, and then the desire to protect other people, that sort of empathy-driven brand of politics. You have described how you used to be kind of like a socialist and you would virtue signal.
I was definitely a socialist when I was, 17, 18, and then more of an anarchist as I got older. But, you just made me think about something. It's possible that with Vice is a youth culture brand. So it was about staying young. And as you get older, you care less about music and other stuff, other pop culture stuff. But my job was to not get older and always know who the new Vampire Weekend was going to be. So it's possible that job made me stay young and made me more idyllic and utopian. And it's possible that I think I retained my sort of teenage anarchist values longer than most. Most people I know at my age, they're conservative. They don't want to pay more tax. They don't trust the government. When you start making money, you see that it gets upwards of 50%. But their rich wives are bored and they start acting like these shrill banshees that want to shut people down. And they just go, all right, let her do her thing. Let her have her little Trump rally and maybe I can get laid that night. But I think I may have had a sort of stunted growth that was utopian in the sense that I still feel the same way I felt when I was 20. And that is, I hate the government. And they go, well, you love the president. Yeah, the president's a stick of dynamite. He's Guy Fawkes. He's going in there with barrels of gunpowder to blow up that building. 5% of DC voted for that guy. That's a lot of Republicans that hate his guts because he's draining the swamp. So he's the most punk rock president we've ever had. And I'm sorry, I don't feel like I changed that much. I still feel like the anarcho-punk kid I was in 1988.
And that's something I wanted to ask you about. You've mentioned before that it was after 9/11 that you kind of had a bit of an awakening, though. There was something of a change in the tide where you began to pay attention to something else. But you still kind of stayed the same person. You didn't have this radically transformed worldview.
I've always been anti-government. I've always been kind of an anarchist. I've always been dubious of authority. I mean, you go to the DMV and you see the way they deal with your license and you go, you guys are basically the same people controlling foreign policy. Politics is Hollywood for ugly people. So imagine you took all of Hollywood, made them ugly, and then asked them what countries to invade. So I've always been dubious of authority. I think we all are. But 9/11, I think I got a little more culturally dubious. I think 9/11 made me more xenophobic. And, you hear Howard Stern talk about Germany, and he's biased because of what.
But it almost seems, I could have sworn I've heard you talk about
I'm biased towards
other people, kind of the way they responded to this, where it almost seemed as if it kind of highlighted the different perspectives that people have culturally on these subjects to an extent where it just really emphasized the schism between people who think like you and people who kind of with whom you associate.
Anthony Cumia, Pamela Geller, and I, we didn't know each other at the time. We were all in New York, and we saw it happen in very close proximity. And I think all of us went, wait a minute, I was kind of ignoring foreign policy and what was going on. But now I'm curious, what are you guys doing? Like, what's happening with Saudi Arabia? Like, when I thought of Saudi Arabia in 2000, I just thought of rich Sikhs with those funny little things on their head and driving a Mercedes-Benz on 2 wheels, that would later appear in an MIA video. I just thought of them as weird rich kids, and I thought it was too hot, I'll never go there. And then I started looking into what's our involvement with these people, and I realized the lunatics are running the asylum, and I'm very concerned about the death of the West. And I read Pat Buchanan's book, Death of the West, the same year. And it was just this sort of, it was a wake-up call. And earlier I said I'm biased towards Islam. The correct term is I'm biased against Islam. But what I want to say is, because I have to watch everything I say now, I got these conservative gadflies swarming me and taking things out of context. If I have a fault, it would be that I definitely am disproportionately dubious of Islam. I think they are a threat. I think that when they get over 10% of the population, you start seeing trouble. I'm concerned that 1 in 4 Muslim American men between the ages of 18 and 25 think suicide bombing is sometimes or often justified. That doesn't sound healthy to me. I'm worried about what I see happening in Luton, in Birmingham, in Copenhagen, all over Europe. There seems to be a problem with this religion in the West. Sikhs do great. Hindus do great. Muslims, there seems to be a sort of a incompatibility problem.
Right. I mean, this is something that even much more muted characters such as Jordan Peterson recognize, and he's openly pondered. Okay, does it have something to do with the fact that their prophet is a warrior as opposed to Jesus Christ, who's not really? And it's almost like there's a different basis to that. But more,
the 2 arguments are: is it the Quran or is it inbreeding?
Right.
The Quran is part of it is peaceful, yes, but part of it is written by a warlord, and it's very confrontational. It says, sever their heads, smite ye above their necks. And then the other argument, and this is very controversial, but if you're ever arguing about this online, make sure when you send the link, you use a Muslim name as the byline. Because lots of Muslims have written about this problem. But when it says like Artie Del Vecchio, and you send that article, people go, this is so racist. But when it's like Muhammad Machad, the problem with inbreeding in our community. Muhammad said you can marry your first cousin. Do that once or twice is not great. Do it 40 generations, we have a major problem going on.
Right.
And especially in England, where they have a smaller gene pool with Pakistanis to pick from, you end up with a serious genetic issue. And it's funny that we're in a time now where saying a hate fact like that will make people go nuts. And you go, I'm just talking about chemicals and inbreeding and biology and basic facts. So the big answer is I don't know why Muslims seem to assimilate less than all other religions, but it's a problem.
Right, but it's a problem that you're not the only person to identify, but yet nevertheless you have received a disproportionate brunt response to your words. You've been universally cornered by every major social media conglomerate. And it strikes me as extremely odd that people like you, or say somebody who's obviously a comedian in the form of Sam Hyde, would be targeted for almost portraying how absurd it is. Whereas it seems to have an impact that people like Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro, people who say a lot of similar things, except less bluntly, less.
Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro don't love Trump.
Right.
Richard Spencer and David Duke aren't effective.
No.
I'm effective. I created hipsters. I created Vice. I'm appealing to young people. The Dems, the DNC, don't exist without blacks or young people. When I say blacks, also browns, like immigrants.
Non-whites.
What?
Non-whites, essentially.
Non-whites.
Yeah.
So that's why they want open borders, because they need the votes. And the only other group they need in their pocket is young people. So if someone's appealing to young people, and I'm appealing to young people, they have to shut me down. And it's funny, the reason I'm appealing to young people, I'm not really appealing to young women. I'm appealing to young men. And all I ever said was, don't be ashamed of yourself. You haven't done anything wrong. And we're in a culture now where young men your age in college get up and they say, I just want to say that I'm coming from a place of privilege and I'm ableist and I'm able and I'm middle class and my What I have to say is obviously worth less than what other people have to say. And then he can say, where's the bathroom? Like, he has to have this caveat before he speaks. And that's what I meant to mention earlier when I was talking about that Y-shaped stick. Like, the Proud Boys, it's not like I created them out of thin air and just went like Moses. There's been a lot of things I pushed that didn't go anywhere, like Electroclash. I thought that was a really cool movement in the early 2000s, and I was like, it's a new punk. And I was like, Electroclash is hot, guys, check it out. And people, it rubbed people the wrong way, and it died immediately. I thought it was a really cool movement, and you'd have to Google it to look it up now. Yeah. But it could have been the new punk. I was totally behind it. I pushed it like crazy. There was no interest there. But I think the reason that Proud Boys took off is because men's clubs are fun. They're silly, they're stupid. Barney Rubble and Fred Flintstone are in the Water Buffaloes. And men like just being away from women and having a dumb club once a month, God forbid, where they can just be goofs and have dumb games like I get to beat you up until you can name 5 breakfast cereals. And I don't know why the left hates that so much.
It brings to mind the fact that they don't like specifically male rambunctiousness, male rebelliousness.
Yep.
And it's specifically that you are essentially I guess it's in a twist of fateful irony, you're back on the rebel, but have been kind of a rebel. That was the thrust of punk. That was why punk was so appealing. And you take politics and you don't lamify it. You don't make it, strictly rhetorical, like argumentation. We have to see things from both sides. You just make jokes about it and you reduce it to absurdity, and that's your appeal. And when there are other figures who have been like that, obviously currently Sam Hyde is like that. Kanye West is kind of like that too, and that's why that's why there was so much frustration with Kanye West, of course.
Oh yeah, Kanye West. Like everything I'm saying about myself is a million times with Kanye West. He has so much influence. Black voters are so important to the DNC, and he was just like a nuclear bomb to them. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he said, I'm getting out of politics because he got death threats. I'm just making that up. Right. But I would not be remotely surprised because he is so incredibly powerful.
Well, I mean, at the very least, he was being isolated socially by people who don't think like him, but professionally. And you have a little bit of experience, I imagine, with that. Because you used to associate with all kinds of celebrities, David Cross, etc., who now probably don't want to pick up the phone if you call them, right? And so there's probably that strong impulse where you realize that you're losing friends because of your beliefs, people with whom you like and you agree you can have a conversation about anything but this. Why is it that they can't, whereas conservatives can associate with people, they can be personal friends with people who think in a manner diametrically opposed to them. Suddenly, if you harbor right-wing beliefs, they feel a need to exclude you. And of course, that's going to shunt you into silence because nobody wants to be socially isolated.
Why?
But it has to be spoken of in hushed terms.
The question is, why the vitriol? Why is it so acerbic? Why is it so poisonous? I mean, I have enemies. I don't like the left. When I see Antifa and all these Twitter accounts doxing guys and getting them fired, calling them Nazis, it makes me really mad. But I don't want to stab them in the neck. And the left wants to stab us in the neck. And it's a fun exercise to try to figure out why.
I think they believe that it's going to lead to genocide. They think it's going to lead into...
I think that's a lie, though. Like they say, you're transphobic and trans people are being killed. It's a genocide. You're pro-genocide. Like, what's her name? That Antifa chick, Lindsay McConnell or whatever, the DC chick. She goes, I don't want to appear... I tried to get her on my show. She goes, I don't want to give anyone who supports genocide a platform. And you're like, genocide? Genocide has been committed by maybe 8 people in history at all. Like Pol Pot, Stalin, Hitler, I guess Milosevic, sort of, Genghis Khan, I guess, kind of. Like, it's very rare. And you're making it totally mainstream. So, I mean, this is a theory I'm just pulling out of my ass, but maybe divorce is the problem here.
Right.
And... because you wonder why they're really focused on white males. They're really focused on this guy I call Brad, who is like the Catholic school guy, Covington Catholic school guy. Yep. So it's not just a white male. It's like a successful, proud white male, middle class, healthy, slim Republican, probably going to do well, probably going to get married, Probably going to have 3 kids. So there's like 12 criteria for this guy. But the hate against him is so strong.
Well, it's almost like they don't want them to have a good time. It ties into your
fun. Yeah, that's another thing.
Color,
fun,
right?
color.
They don't want them to be having fun. Specifically, Brad. They specifically don't want Brad to be doing Brad things.
They want Brad's throat slit.
Right.
They want that Covington High School kid's throat slit. And I think here's a wild theory. Divorce is brutally traumatizing, and we trivialize it. We treat it like I didn't like wearing this blazer anymore, and I took it off. It was too hot. It's not that. It's very serious. And when you have kids, it's a gut punch. When you get divorced, what you say to your kids is, yeah, love is bullshit. I loved your mom, but it's not permanent. And you know what? You probably shouldn't get married, and you probably shouldn't have kids.
I think it demystifies that entire process of love, that process of romance.
It says it's a lie.
Yeah.
And it says that whatever you went through right now with this divorce, when you get married and you have kids, you're going to put them through it. So do you want to duplicate this shit you're going through right now? I don't think so. And so obviously there's going to be animosity there, because the only reason we're here on Earth, the meaning of life, is to reproduce and to make kids and to stay married, and then they make more kids. So divorce is a knife in that. And so I think there's this genetic, totally natural, God-designed animosity to divorce, and it directs itself to the patriarch. You fucker. You ruined everything, Dad. And 70% of divorces are instituted by women, but women are weaker than men, so it's an easier target just to blame it on Dad. And I'm just making this up as I go along, but I can't help but think this bizarre, vitriolic, acidic animosity towards the patriarchy, towards the free market, towards Trump, towards Republicans, towards conservatives, towards Christians, all comes back to bitter children of divorce that just want revenge. Like, oh, I want to rip, I hate what have you done, Dad?
Right.
And that's why Homer Simpson is such a joke. That's why the dad from Married with Children is such a joke. You watch the father from Gumball. I watched cartoons with my kids. He is way stupider than Homer. I mean, he's human garbage. He probably has an IQ of 60. There just seems to be this massive wave of anti-dad culture. I mean, there was an Antifa guy in Portland who shot at cops recently, and he had a shirt that said "Smash the Patriarchy." This is just a crazy theory.
Yep.
I'm making it up.
Well, it coincides
but it's
with the fact
possible that it all comes
fatherlessness-
down to daddy issues from divorce.
Well, fatherlessness is at an all-time high. There's no precedented period for what we're seeing currently. And with that in mind, it would seem that it's certainly possible that that is a viable theory. But I
look at the fatherlessness in the black community. We're at 75%.
Yeah, that is certainly the case. But what do you think drives that, though? Because you mentioned the free market, and it motivates a response to hate the free market.
Why don't blacks have dads?
Right.
Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking more broadly. I mean, it's not just blacks, but specifically blacks. Specifically.
I think we should separate them.
Right.
Blacks don't have dads because of welfare. The government provided a financial incentive to shatter the family. And they said, dump him and I'll give you a check. Yeah. Blacks committed crime the same amount of whites pre-welfare. In the 1920s and 30s, when blacks were married about the same as whites, they created about the same amount of crime. I believe it was a tiny bit more. Since then, the black crime rate is through the roof, and it could be lack of fatherly discipline. It could just be idle hands. The mother's on welfare, and you're sitting around. Like, what if you and I were sitting around the projects for days and days and days? I think we'd go like, let's go steal, I don't know, a plant. I'm bored.
Yeah.
Let's go do something. Now, on a broader scale, so I blame welfare on black crime. On a broader scale, fatherlessness in general, I think boomer self-indulgence is a big part of it. The boomers are the worst generation ever, and they sort of invented the concept of self. Me, 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 me. If you went up to a greatest generation, pre-boomer, and you said he's working on the docks on the waterfront in New York, and you said, "Are you depressed? How do you feel about you? How's it going, Eddie?" He'd be like, "What?" No one had ever asked him that. He just works on the docks, like Archie Bunker. What if we went up to Archie Bunker and said, "Och, how are you doing inside? Like, what's going on with Och? Are you okay? Are you scared?" He wouldn't even understand you. He'd be like, "You a fag?"
But why do you think it is that, to kind of take it off track a little bit, why do you think it is that, despite the fact that nothing that you're saying is something that conservatives would not agree with, the emphasis on the family, on stoicism, on male stoicism, on strength and self-resilience, nothing you've said is especially controversial, but why is it that seemingly few conservatives are really coming to your aid, it seems to me?
They're pussies.
I just don't see too many people willing to actually defend Gavin.
They're pussies. But in their defense, I have a swarm of bees around me.
And it's almost like it's like a black sludge where nobody wants to be consumed by it.
Yeah, like after I was fired from CRTV, I said to Ezra Levant, "I assume you want me really badly." And he goes, "I do, but you have a swarm of bees around you." And people always say, it's a free market. You're not being impressed. You're not being impressed by the government. And I say, okay, imagine there's a guy who was being stalked by a crazy ex-girlfriend. And everywhere he worked, they'd throw a cinder block through the front window. Eventually, the boss is going to go, "Every time I replace the glass, it's $1,500. I don't have $50,000 of glass to keep doing this again and again and again." Like, get a restraining order against her, which is what I'm doing with this SPLC lawsuit. I'm essentially getting a restraining order against my crazy ex-girlfriend that keeps throwing cinder blocks through the window every time I get a job. So it's not the free market. It's not the government. I said this on a show the other day, and this is in a good book called Free Speech for Me, But Not for Thee. I think it's by Nathaniel, someone, I forget his name. But he was saying, stop getting lost in the weeds of there's the government and there's the free market. It's about the culture. If we lived in a culture where murder wasn't seen as bad, then go ahead, write a law that says murder is bad. It's not worth the paper it's written on. It's all about how the people feel. And right now, the law says hate speech is included in free speech. Free speech includes all speech, including saying fire in a crowded theater, all that crap. But the people don't agree with that. And that means your career, your life is ruined if you violate that dictum. So it doesn't matter if the government's ruining your life or the mob is ruining your life. Right now we're living in an America where if you sin and you say something that's verboten, someone ruins your life.
And this underscores the necessity of specifically the SPLC, which tries to set up directories from which journalists, and they've said this, that they're directories that journalists can rely upon to characterize you in a certain light and then cite the SPLC as evidence, which is supposedly a legitimate institution. I mean, they did this with they said this with regard to Majid Nawaz. They said that this is a directory essentially for extreme anti-Muslims. And so they're doing the same thing with you, and so it allows you to be characterized as far right when evidently your views are not far right.
Yeah,
and it allows you to connect you tangentially to white nationalism when obviously you're not.
There are white nationalists in America. There are Nazis in America. There are extremists in America. There are maybe dangerous, survivalists that want to blow up the government in America. There's probably about 22 of those people. If the SPLC was devoted to exposing them, they would make about $4,000 a year. That's not good business. So they have to lie. And they have to go, you three, me, that bottle of wine in that fridge are Nazis.
Yep.
And now it seems more of a looming threat. Now there's more checks. Now they're up to $430 million with money in the Cayman Islands. I don't believe them. And this goes bigger, too, than the SPLC. I don't believe the left. Like when they say that there's a white nationalist in the White House, they know that the whole concept of white nationalism is bizarre and rare. It's like being a pedophile. It's like being one of those people who... Actually, I think being a white nationalist is more esoteric than being a cutter. You know these girls who like cut themselves with razor blades on their arms and stuff?
I do.
I think that's more common than being a white nationalist. But that
It's
doesn't
actually
pay the
extremely
bills.
common.
Yeah.
It's actually extremely
And
common.
I feel like if you could get one of these liberals that talks about the Nazis and the white supremacists everywhere, I feel like if you get them alone in a kitchen in a place like this, and everyone's gone to bed, and you give them a few whiskeys, and you're like, look, we're alone now. Let's get the crap. Do you really think that 50% of the country are white nationalists? And they will go, obviously not. But we gotta get Trump out of here. He's so stupid. And yeah, I played dirty pool to get him out of there. And maybe I got a bunch of people fired pretending there's Nazis everywhere. But I need this. I gotta get the job done. And the job is to get Hillary or Cortez in there and restore, I don't know. I go to Germany and people make fun of me like on vacation because they go, your president is stupid. And I want to have a cool president again. So what I did was I said you were a Nazi and I was a Nazi. And it's not great. I'm not proud of it. And I'll stop. I guarantee you that's what they would
So
say.
long story short, the ends justify the means as far as they're concerned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I've told this story 100 times, but at NYU, I got up there and I said, they pepper sprayed me for being a Nazi. And I finally got up there and I did this sort of Tom Metzger thing where I said, we got 3 problems in this country. The Negro, the Jew, and the woman. And all the protesters' jaws hit the floor.
Right.
They were stunned. They were silent. And then I go, just kidding, just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. Obviously, you don't believe that. But why did your jaws hit the floor? Because you pepper sprayed me based on me being that guy. I acted like that guy, and you had a heart attack.
Yeah.
So you're lying. Mm-hmm. And I was saying this on Crowder earlier. Even within the left, there's this strange schism where they don't represent the majority. There's not, I'm going to say 80% of the left is kind of sane. They're just pussies. And it's sort of like Islam. We have these moderate Muslims that go, I don't want to talk about jihad. I don't want to talk about extremism. That's just a weird thing. No, they're your problem. Get involved. I can't get involved the way you can get involved. Get involved. And to the moderate left, I say, you have maybe 15% to 20% of your party unhinged. And from top to bottom, not just Antifa, but right up to judges and Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is talking about Jussie Smollett, taking his story totally seriously, pretending she smoked pot, listening to Tupac 10 years before Tupac was a thing. All of you on the left have to identify your alt-lefts. We identify our alt-rights. We disavow the Spencers and the Dukes and the Holocaust deniers.
To the extent that we're hyper paranoid and we won't even associate with people like you, apparently.
Yeah,
you know?
we go too far.
Yeah.
We disavow Pat Buchanan.
Yeah.
As an anti-Semite, even though he's one of the most rational conservatives around. So we're working hard to do our due diligence, but you guys have these gremlins in there who, I don't know, someone got water on them, someone let them see sunlight, and they're wrecking the entire country, and they're a shrill minority.
Yeah.
Every time I say a really good point, you'll hear that sound.
Intermission, come in.
It's a chip I had implanted in my spine.
Hey.
All right, so let me finish.
Okay.
I really want young women, millennial women. Shut up, please. Like, talking about a doorbell is just as loud as the doorbell. We really got to make sure that doorbell's quiet. No, I really want young women. You should have heard this woman at the airport the other day saying that word like. It was shocking.
Well, coming from
And I want
California,
them to
I had to expunge that. We had this problem when we do podcasts, and we would just say like every other word, and so it was something that we would make a It's a problem. It's you're being bigoted right now, Gavin. I have to admit, because we come from that background where it's a cultural thing where we just kind of say like no matter what we can do.
No, don't explain it away.
I'm sorry. I have to California explain it to you.
It's wrong.
I know it's wrong. Objectively,
It has
it's
to
wrong.
stop.
I know.
We have to fight it.
I know. It's a word.
It's like an illegal immigrant word that is taking over the English language.
Yeah.
So what I propose is, and you can have this idea free, inventors, it's an LED light on your shoulder. And every time you say like, it just goes, it lights up. I'm not asking for an electric shock. You're not going to die. But just like, boop. And I feel like young women will just see this like, boop, 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 boop. They'll see it looks like a police car pulled them over as they talk. I'm like, no, like, I want to be like, seriously, I was like, I'm so mad at you. And he was like, and like I was like, what? And he was like, and
You're not
it was
actually
like,
saying sentences.
it was
You're
like,
just- yeah.
like a lot of it was like not like mad, but it was like it was like angry, but like I don't know. It was like like, and
Yeah.
this thing would just be going boop 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 boop. Like hopefully they get a sunburn right here and realize they have a curse.
Yep. That is definitely
Men
the case.
too, and grown men my age.
Well, it's even worse
are
with
doing
men
it.
because they sound like women. I can excuse it with women because
45-year-old men saying like.
right.
I'd
Yeah.
rather see socks.
I don't know.
and
I don't even know if that
flip-flops.
was a thing. Like younger men, like there I am. I just did
There
it.
you go.
Yep. All
You
right.
said,
well, just
and
shoot
I
me
say to
down
my
here.
kids, they'll,
Yeah.
they'll say it was like 13 bottles, and I say, just I understand that we're not in a court of law, and you didn't have a measuring tape, and you're not a bottles counter, so just say 13 bottles. I'm fine with that. You don't have to say like 13 bottles in case it was 12 bottles. It might be part of the pussification of this country. We used to be a little more brave. We used to be able to get things wrong. You know, Irishmen exaggerate, and you know that's the problem with Trump. They go, he's a liar. No, he's a bullshitter.
Yeah.
When he says I could shoot someone in the middle of 52nd Street and get away with it, he doesn't literally mean.
Right.
And that's my problem with all this censorship. They're getting so NPC, so non-playable character, that they're saying, President Donald Trump said that he could shoot someone. You're not allowed to say that. So don't make any jokes ever again. Don't, when you're in private on a bus, make a funny quip about grabbing a pussy, because that's going to become national policy. So everyone has to be a catatonic robot and never have any color or flavor. No.
A lot of that has to do possibly with social media, where everything you say is documented, and there's always some other person to check it.
Fine.
And it's
get documented. Get fired.
Right.
Yeah, I did say grab her by the pussy. It's kind of true.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I wonder. I mean, it's not as hard. It's not as easy as that because people can get fired. And what if they, a lot of people aren't innately talented. It just as a matter of who they are, and they're not going to be able to just rebound instantaneously
Yes,
and become
they are.
anything.
That's the beauty of
Really?
America.
Are you sure about that?
It's a free country. Rebound, rebound, rebound. You can't rebound from false allegations, like my buddy Cale Hartman, who was falsely accused of sexually assaulting a woman, and his life is over now. He would love that to go to court. But for the most part, yeah, I did say that. I did do that. Cale would love his case to go to court. He begged the woman, please bring me to court. I can prove my innocence. But in the court of social media, they said, no, so what we have to do is just keep fighting. Like, it's going to be very hard to beat the SPLC. They're David and Goliath has eye protective glasses on. How am I going to win against probably $1 billion company? I don't know, but you have to fight. If someone slaps your mother in the face,
Well, of course, the SPLC.
I don't care if the guy's 8 feet tall. If an 8 feet tall man slaps your mother in the face, you have to fight him. Sorry.
Yeah, and the SPLC is just the tip of the iceberg too, because it represents a cultural attitude that's not going to change,
Yep.
even if the SPLC shuttered its doors tomorrow.
The SPLC, the ADL, the media, the Washington Post, CNN, Slate, and Huffington Post, and BuzzFeed, and Daily Beast. I mean, we got to attack them somewhere.
Yeah. Well, specifically about your case, though, I mean, it's also hinged upon the fake news, the fake arguments are made about your beliefs, the fake information that revolves around your beliefs about white identity and hate and blah, blah, blah. But also hinges upon the elements of violence allegedly within the Proud Boys. It's predicated on the idea that the Proud Boys were sort of, chomping at the bit for violence. And even Joe Rogan was somebody who said that the Proud Boys span out of control, and you lost your grip on the Proud Boys.
That's so not true. That drives me nuts. I think if there's one thing you could say bad about the Proud Boys, is that they enjoy fighting.
Yeah.
So they got cornered, they were forced to fight, and they didn't hate it. That's really the beef, especially on October 12th, after my talk, when Antifa built a human wall and threw a glass, not plastic, a glass bottle of piss at them, and then started fighting them. I am willing to concede that some of those guys probably enjoyed fighting back. Sorry, some people like fighting. I box every day. It's an interesting art form.
But
Fighting
let's
solves
assume
everything.
worst case scenario that some of them maybe did get out of hand. a lot of it is that you are being held personally responsible for every member of this organization that you started.
But before you say get out of hand, if you're going to argue get out of hand, yeah, they got out of hand. I'm not saying they got out of hand. After they were ambushed and attacked.
Right.
So someone punches you and then you punch back too hard. What kind of, it goes back to the the Catholic schoolboys where they said in the interview, don't you think standing your ground is kind of aggressive? No one else has to stand up to this level of scrutiny. That venue was vandalized. We had a citizen journalist that night mobbed by Antifa. They beat him up and stole his equipment. They were all arrested for that. They said this is just the beginning. The poor woman who answers the phone at the Manhattan Republican Club was called a cunt and we're going to rape you. Getting calls from all over the country. And they yelled Nazi at us. They threw piss at me when I was leaving. That's why I brandished my plastic sword and said Toyo Yamaguchi forever, which I think is pretty funny. And eventually, after all that harassment, they're dispersed. They go around the corner. They build a human wall, and Proud Boys go, you know what? Yeah, I've had enough of this. And they didn't even go to punch them first. The first thing that the first Proud Boy did was rip his mask off. It wasn't this. It was this. And the cops saw that. They asked the Antifa, hey, do you want to press charges? We're here. We're the police. We're here to protect you. And they said, fuck you, pig. I just got punched in the face like 70 times. And the cops they followed the law. And the law is, if you and I were fighting outside right now and cops came over and both of you and I said, no, we're not pressing charges, it's treated as a play fight. It's just ignored. It doesn't exist.
And Ben Shapiro, for instance, he views this as kind of like the brown coat, the brown shirts and the radical communists in Nazi Germany. He kind of analogizes it to that, which of course doesn't.
I don't want to be
sense.
linked to Nazis in any way.
Yeah,
Which
course.
ones are we? The brown shirts ended up being the Nazis, and I don't want to be the commies either. I don't like that analogy at all.
Right.
But after that happened, everyone was free to go. It was over. And then the DNC, who uses the Antifa as their paramilitary wing, that's been well documented, they go, we can make this into a political thing and we can make the right look unhinged because we're being known as unhinged. So let's blame it on the right. And this is right before the midterms. The SPLC says they're a hate group. Let's attack them as a hate group. So the Attorney General, de Blasio, Cuomo, they all go, New York has no place for hate. If you look at officialproudboys.com, it's Proud Boy magazine. They documented these 10 ways that the New York politicians weaponize the Proud Boys. And they said, these hate groups are roaming the streets. We don't want that here. And they started using it to promote their agenda. Yeah. But then all of a sudden, these guys who were ambushed and fought back are getting picked up at work, being charged with felonies, riot felonies, attempted assault, which I've never heard of before. They're facing 40 grand in lawyers' fees. I got my lawyers and their lawyers saying, look, dude, they think you're a gang. Just step down. That might take like a week off their sentence. It might alleviate their sentencing. These guys, 2 of them are married to black chicks and have black kids, and they're fired for being part of a white supremacist organization. Yeah. That has got to be peak clown world. And you say that to BuzzFeed and Daily Beast, and they go, well, it's called multiracial white supremacy. And you go, you're an idiot and an oxymoron.
Well, I mean, of course, the central problem is that they view Western culture as intrinsically racial. They can't disconnect it. So they think that...
And the irony is Western culture is the least identity politics culture there is. In fact, Western culture was founded on come here, work hard, and we're good. I don't want to hear about your race. Nowhere is like that.
Yeah.
You know, Guam isn't like that. Cuba isn't like that. The Middle East has a different passport for what different race you are. There's all these, nomenclatures and boxes to check off in every other country. But in the West, they go, I don't give a shit who you are.
But interestingly, though, you've been saying this stuff for a while. When did you begin to notice when the heat began to get turned up on you? When
Trump turned the heat on me in a big way.
Really?
But this October 12th talk was a real tsunami of bullshit. And I think it's because the midterms are coming and they needed a villain. And they were known as becoming violent and unhinged. And they said, Gavin runs the Proud Boys. Let's make them into the KKK and throw a bunch of guys in jail. Yeah. I mean, I fought the law and the law won. I was kind of naive. I knew that Antifa obviously was corrupt, and I knew the DNC might have been linked to them, and I knew the media was corrupt. I honestly, before October 12th, I didn't know that there was SJW judges and DAs, prosecutors.
And do you think that people like you who actually do brush against the guardrails of acceptable opinion, but do so extremely effectively, is it possible that underdogs such as yourself can overcome them and really transcend the institutions that are trying to stifle them? Can somebody like you actually effectively...
That's $1 million question. And I don't think it matters per se. I think the real picture, the real point here is that you have to fight. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. If an 8 foot tall guy slaps your mom, you have to fight him. Will you win? I don't know. But we can't sit there and let an 8 foot tall dude slap our mothers in the face.
That sounds like a brilliant note to end on, if you ask me.
You can help me. You can help my cause. You can help the cause by going to defendgavin.com and donating $5, $10, whatever you got. Even your name as a donation, even anonymously, is a big deal. And the reason we're doing all this is to push back on the idea that Americans can no longer express themselves. It's not a war on, it's not trying to defend hate speech. This censorship is a war on color. It's a war on fun. You know, George Orwell said within every joke is a tiny revolution. These people are stifling revolution. They're stifling jokes. They're stifling sex. They're stifling what makes this country great. This country is obnoxious. It's sometimes ridiculous. It is erudite, and there's great scholars in America. There's also Beavis and Butthead and Rodney Dangerfield in Caddyshack. There's Hawaiian shirts and sock garters. There's hot dogs, and there's fine French cuisine. There's this huge cornucopia of variety in this country, and they are stifling it and turning it into socialist gray. And when you donate to this fund, you are helping push back against that.